we started doing some research on what was going on with the Rings of Power, because we've gotten a lot of interesting fluff, and then things went radio silent, and then we covered that article that was in Looper, whatever the hell it's called, last week, and I wanted to go back to IMDb because I'd made a video on this. IMDb did not look like what you're looking at now. And I'm going to show you something that I'm still trying to understand. And what's important here is look at the series writing credits for the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, who gets the story for Amazon's billion-dollar Lord of the Rings project. J.R.R. Tolkien only gets credit for 4 episodes of an 8-episode series.
It also references a novel, which I don't understand because they don't have the rights to a novel as far as I'm aware. So either that's incorrect or there's just something we don't know about. But it says, from a Tolkien novel.
So what, to me, I'm interpreting this to mean that out of 8 episodes in a billion-dollar franchise, only 4 episodes had 50%, arguably, or more of Tolkien in them. Meaning half of the 8-episode series had less than 50% of Tolkien?
The 2 things that we know, like, explicitly is that they've said they're going to compress the timeline and they are going to adapt in between the lines, essentially, by making new characters, or if it says Galadriel traveled from this place to this place, but it doesn't say what happened in between that time, they can make up that entire period of time that she traveled with no context. So those are 2 things that we explicitly know, and if that's the case, we know that the first few episodes of Amazon's series is most likely going to be that compressed, that condensed timeline. So if the first 4 episodes is the compressed timeline, it would most likely be the Silmarillion, which they don't have rights to. So those first 4 episodes could be just all made up, and then the next 4 would actually be what they were trying to pull from the appendices.
I think they're using very selective language with this, as in based on the novel. As Max correctly said, it's just the only thing they have the actual rights to are the appendices, and that's limits them so much to what they can actually write about and get away with. We've seen it before, and you've seen it with Wheel of Time. It is getting to the point where it is Tolkien in name only. We've already seen it with the way the characters have been introduced, the way that they're playing around with the timeline. I don't know how they're going to do it, because there is just so much history for them to cover.
The other fascinating part is the names that I have highlighted were the ones originally attached to this and were listed on IMDb when I did my last deep dive video on where we were at with the Rings of Power. So that includes Jason Cahill, Justin Doble, Jennifer Hutchinson, of course, Kay and Payne themselves, and Brian Cogman. Now, I'm not going to go into the pedigree of each one of those people. What was new to me, and which I found troubling, was the addition of other people that I did not see their names attached to this before.
Mm-hmm.
So this is who they brought in to write an episode of Tolkien. Toy Story 4.
The Toy Story nobody asked for.
So this is someone who's responsible for writing the second episode of the premiere. This is someone who wrote for Star Wars Resistance.
Oh boy. I mean, at least, I guess if there's a positive, at least they have credits. JD, or McCain and Payne, or whatever their names are, Opie and Opie don't have any credits. So at least
true.
Whoever this woman is, at least she has some credits. But Star Wars and Toy Story, both Disney owned.
I mean, Helen Chang wrote for Hawaii Five-0, so that's exciting.
Yeah. And that's where I'm going with all this. Is these are the people they brought on after, because all those other names we heard, and then it was retracted that the writer's room had been tossed out or evicted or changed. And then they're like, no, that didn't happen. And yet at the same time, look who they brought in to write Tolkien. This person wrote Hawaii Five-0. not the original, which was good. The craptastic stuff on Paramount Plus. Let's look at their pedigree that would enable them to be someone who'd be responsible for Tolkien. An episode of Hannibal, Horror Haiku, production staff on Hannibal.
What's so odd is, like, how do you find these? Like, these are niche people, right? Like, now they may be a part of a larger group of, maybe J.J. Abrams' family, but
that's where I'm going with this next one. That's where I'm going.
So I'll give that to you then, Salty, because I want you to kind of...
No. I'm just, again, I'm doing the hallelujah thing. So we have Glenise Mullins. Now, Glenise Mullins has a very accomplished career as a writer for J.J. Abrams, and Alex Kurtzman. She's a writer for Star Trek Discovery for 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery. That's who's writing our Lord of the Rings.
Good Lord.
And she didn't just write one episode of Star Trek Discovery. She was a story editor for every episode.
Oh my God.
She has assorted production assistant credits.
The Kurtzman curse strikes again.
Terminator Genesis.
I mean,
great.
And Kurtzman, who's Kurtzman? Kurtzman is J.J. Abrams' ugly, unbonable little brother. Let's be honest about it. You know what I mean?
No MVP-ness for him. That would not be.
No MVP-ness for you, brother. So check this out, and this is where the last time I did a really deep Lord of the Rings video was talking about who's directing what. Now, we didn't know what episodes people were directing. We just had the episode count. This has been updated as well. Also, the name of this director, he was listed as Wayne Yip. They changed his name on the credits to be Wayne Chi Yip. Look at what he's done. He's a director for Doctor Who and Wheel of Time. This is who is directing your Lord of the Rings.
At least he's a mixed bag, because he has directed some absolute trash, but there's a few things that were okay that he did. I've heard Happy is a good show. I like Doom Patrol, but he's very his style is very heavily stylized action, like Into the Badlands is his type of action, not Lord of the Rings, which is much more, I guess, realistic in style. And Doctor Who, Preacher, same thing. Yeah.
None of these things are things that I would watch. None of these things are what I would expect to be, in my opinion, and maybe I'm just a dick. I wouldn't want anybody who worked on these projects to do anything in Lord of the Rings other than get my coffee. Or maybe erase the whiteboard for the adults writing in the room. And I don't care how that sounds, because they've already shown us so much disdain and disgust, especially Payne and McKay, that I'm overplaying nice now. I am. I'm gonna have some dignity. But when you call me a racist and a misogynist and you blanketly state that because I'm calling you out on your incompetence, no, we're not going to do this anymore.
Well, for this Yip gentleman, if you look back at his stuff, like, if you want to have an idea for what it's going to look like, go check out Misfits, which was a decent show. Utopia. It's nothing. Like, he's never done anything that looks like what we expect Lord of the Rings to look like.
Well, he did work on Wheel of Time, and Wheel of Time looked nothing like Wheel of Time.
Exactly.
And this is what you're getting, because this guy worked on Wheel of Time. He's now qualified to work on Lord of the Rings. Am I being unfair? Purple, what's your take on this? You never watched Wheel of Time.
I didn't, but it sounds like this is once again a case of failing upwards. So you take an IP that gets really a strong backlash from the fans because it's been mutilated and wrecked and completely changed from the source material, and then they move on to something even bigger and more well known, such as Tolkien, and no doubt they're going to do it again. But I hate the idea of, a show being written by committee. It never seems to work. The more writers, the worse the show seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that. I think the first page that you had up, Salty, it's like, when I looked at that, 2 of the, 20 credits are Tolkien, and then the rest are just random writers. And like you said, Purple, it's too many cooks in the kitchen. How does anyone get any work done in a writer's room that is that large? I mean, you would have to have a table that expands the entire meeting room, because they're and how would anyone create or come up with ideas if everyone is just trying to put in their take or their input or what they want to see, because it's not about what they would want to adapt for Tolkien. It's what they want to insert into the show. And with that many writers, you're going to get a lot of stuff that we don't need to see or want to see.
Yeah, let's start at the top. You got Payne and McKay. How many times are we going to say this? What is their CV? What qualified them to lead a $1 billion Tolkien writing the novel that Tolkien couldn't? What qualified them to do that? They freaking wrote the worst Star Trek movie ever made. I haven't made it all the way through that movie because it's so stupid. So those are the guys who make the calls.
Well, let's talk failing upward, like Purple said, and look at J.A. Bayona here, where his last directing job was Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Ooh, that's a bad one.
That's an indictment.
Yeah.
Oh, he did a music video for Keen. I like Keen, but that was 10 years ago. Look at the lag in his career. I mean, look at the lag in his career.
Yeah.
He did a couple episodes of Penny Dreadful, which was a decent show. Does that
in 2014?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing.
And, it's because I could sit here and look at this and go, man, these are all hacks. They haven't done anything. And they could absolutely look right back at me and go, well, what are you doing? You literally sit here and have a YouTube channel. You have no credits on IMDb. You have no, producer credits or anything. And that's fine. And they can absolutely say that. But I have the right, chat has the right, this panel has the right to still worry about this thing that we care about, because everyone will go, well, why do you care? Who cares about this? But it's something that we're so passionate about that's why we want to break down these writers. We want to see who's writing this and who's putting the time and the effort. Because even when Peter Jackson came on board, he wasn't assigned to the story. And I think that's what's really important, is these writers are assigned to Lord of the Rings to bring in their take. Peter Jackson had to sell his passion. He had to go to New Line. He had to go to Paramount. He had to go to Alt Universal. And he was going, I want to do this Lord of the Rings series. Will you help me do that? And four out of the 5 of them said no. They were like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah, and they wanted to change it. Was there anybody in the way of those changes? They seem to have gotten rid of anybody who would have, especially after, God bless him, Christopher Tolkien died. Tom Shippey went out the door. Why? Because he gave a radio interview to the German Tolkien Society. You're going to get rid of Tom Shippey because of that? Bull. Let's be honest about it. And again, I don't need conspiracies. I don't need to make up drama. These people have already proven to us with the Wheel of Time, with The Expanse, with everything they touch. What's most important to them has nothing to do with the source material. It has to do with ideology, and it's exhausting.
The fact that we don't know who these people are and that they haven't promoted these people to us tells us what we need to know. Like, they're embarrassed by what the people they've hired, or else they would be hyping them to us. That they've sold us nothing about this show. The most info we got was from Max going to see LordofTheRings.net. Like, really? They're not giving us anything. Like, give us profiles of these writers. Tell us about their ideas. Sell them to us. Don't hide them from us.
I just wanted to break this news with you guys because I thought it was really interesting, because I like to do research on these things, because I don't want to just make videos that go, this sucks. I want to tell you why I'm concerned. And this is the reasons why, and this is who these people are. Now, Max, Purple, Zach, you guys were talking about all these writers and where they come from. One of them came from writing Stranger Things. One came from Breaking Bad. Now, one of them did work on the Game of Thrones, on it, but he was out the door first and left for another project. And I believe the other writer, I don't remember, but it was not a fantasy property. There is, and I've said this before in other shows, there is a director who is, in my opinion, absolutely qualified to be in this production. Her name is Charlotte Brandstrom. She's a Swedish filmmaker, actually a French filmmaker who grew up in Sweden, has an extensive CV. What she did work on that is of note is The Witcher. She also did The Man in the High Castle, which is, I love the first 2 seasons of that. She's the only one here that I'm like, you know what, that makes perfect sense. I think she'd be perfect for this. So she only has 2 episodes. She's only the most qualified person to be on this production, and she is given the last 2 episodes, which to me means something. I really think the first half of this is going to be terrible. That's what I think. And they brought in this person who knew what the hell she was doing to help them try and salvage the season. Am I being unfair? Do you guys think I'm just seeing ghosts on this one?
No, that sounds about right, to be honest. And looking down this, there's an absolute army of producers as well. It's like, this is insane.
It's like beyond a boardroom. They almost need a gymnasium for all these staff to get together. It's unbelievable.
Producers are really, from what I've seen, and you know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but producers a lot of time like to get their hands, not get their hands dirty, but they like their hands in the project without actually doing any work or having any passion behind it, because they know that they have money input into the product. And when you have so many of those producers, like you guys were saying, it's like they all have to have a little bit of say in the final product, which is just, it's like adding an ingredient into something as simple as just making eggs, and then someone being like, well, I want pickles in there too. Like, well,
in a lot of cases, an executive producer credit is something you give as a consolation prize to people. That's what I've seen in the past, is they were brought on to be writers. They were brought on to be something else. And again, I don't care what anybody says. Something happened. Something happened after Christopher Tolkien died. Something happened right before the Amazon diversity and inclusion policy. And these people, they may have stayed on. They've been given executive producer credits, but not writer credits. They were brought on as writers for the series.
Well, there's 21 of them listed here, including
there are.
Wayne.
Yeah, and the only one that matters to all of us is J.R.R. Tolkien, and he's only responsible for half of the season. They could arguably and probably legally reference back to him. So that means 50% of what the two morons who wrote the worst Star Trek movie ever, what they came up with. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be sensational. It's just, this is not going to be Tolkien. And that's why they're radio silent. That's why we don't have a trailer. And that's why they attacked us. They know what they've done is not going to be accepted.
And this is just half of the first season. And what were they predicting? They wanted 5 seasons?
Yeah. And the interesting thing too is, like, the two writers, the showrunners, they wrote a Star Trek script. It never got produced. It never even got off the ground because people didn't want to see it, or they, weren't interested, or they didn't have the funding. I don't know what happened. So I don't know. It's, if you are going to have, how many did you say, Purple?
21.
21. Yeah. If you are going to have 21, like, I cannot believe that they found the only 21 people that worked on the shows that are so divisive. You know what I mean? Like Wheel of Time, Star Trek Discovery. Like, they could have chosen from any franchise, from any type of show or, streaming service, or like they could have chosen the Daredevil guys, the guys who wrote the Daredevil series from Netflix. Anything but Star Trek Discovery and Wheel of Time, you know what I mean? But they, sure enough, they still found these writers. So
yes, we seem to be seeing that a lot recently, especially in the last few years. The pool of talent that they're pulling from seems to be getting smaller and smaller. You've seen, as you guys correctly said, the same names popping up over and over again on these different shows, and it's always the same end result.
I wanted to share this with you guys because, again, this is another trickle of information. People are going to say, oh, you can't trust IMDb, just like people on my videos were saying, who cares what Looper thinks? Wake me up when MSNBC says it. It's like, you know what? I think a lot of these things are trial balloons. I think a lot of these things are seeing the response to them backing off of the attack, because it was an attack. They came after us. The damn show didn't even come out. Smartest thing they could have done is kept their mouth shut and gave us a quality product. They have yet to give us a quality product. So where does that leave a rational human being with their assumptions as to what the hell is really going on?
As ever, this is Salty Texas Sea. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you've liked what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way you know, and we have things like live streams, which we are now going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.